Okay, hi. This is Calc-Based Physics 1, right? Yay. Um, I'm going to turn one of these. Um, and today, I'm pretty much just going to go through the syllabus. I think that's all we'll have time for. Um, I'll talk about the structure of this class. Uh, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with D2L from other classes, but I'm going to go through how stuff is organized on D2L because everything I do is going to run through D2L. Um, for this whole class, I'm going to do everything on a tablet computer, including the notes that I write are going to be up here. You'll see it up there just like it's a whiteboard, but the benefit of it is that I'm taking a video as I go. And so you can go to YouTube and watch videos of all the lectures. Um, and I'll have PDFs of everything that I write that you can download from D2L. So we'll have a full reference of everything in the class. Um, okay, so to get to D2L, go to the main Normandale page. And D2L is up in the top right. And you need a star ID and a password. Let me know if you have trouble logging in. I can point you to the right places to get that set up. But once you're in D2L, I think hopefully you have like a list of all your classes towards the bottom. And oh, one thing about this, even though we have two different lab sections, I moved all the names from section 22 up to the one for section 21. So your lab section won't show, it'll say closed, I assume. But everything that you need is going to be under lab section 21, even if you're in lab section 22. Okay, so there's just one of these for everybody. So go to the one that's not closed, basically. And then when you get into the D2L page for the class, the first thing you see is the announcements. Every time I put something new up or make a change to something or give an assignment or whatever, I'm going to write something about it in the announcements. So look at that first. Get in the habit of looking at that every day. I guess I won't put announcements when I enter grades. You can just periodically go to the grade book and look and see if there's anything new. But anything else that you need to know, I'm going to make a note there. And then pretty much everything you need, well, grades are under assessments, grades, but all the materials you need are going to be in content. And content's broken up into course information, homework problems, homework solutions, old lecture notes. The homework problems, I'm planning to change a few of these, but the basic idea is that all of the homework problems you need for the class are under homework problems. If you just go to some random one here, it has maybe 10 or 15 problems in it. And you can think about this class as really just this class is designed to help you understand these 100 or 150 or whatever problems that we're going to do during the class. I have solutions posted to not all of these, but maybe about half of them. The ones that, and so the solutions look like this, just full solutions to selected problems. For the problems that don't have solutions here, I'll start most classes asking about homework questions, and if you have them, I can, go through some of the problems at the beginning of class. But we have a sort of a short class, so I won't do that every time, and maybe I won't be able to get through everything. But the ones that I don't have time to go through in class, if you're confused about them, then we need to talk about them in office hours. But that's the way to get through solutions, or work with other people in the class, which would be better, you know. But I'd always be happy to help you get through these problems. And then old lecture notes, if you ever want to read ahead or just skim ahead what kind of stuff we're doing. This is sort of what it'll look like. It won't look like that. That was when I was trying to get used to the new note software, I think. Let's go down a little. Okay. So, you know, this is just, as I went through my lecture, this is what I was writing. There's a PDF there. I think it started out by me going through a couple of questions people had, and then started going through the lecture. Okay, so you'll have PDFs of everything that I write, and they go along with the videos that'll be in YouTube. So if you miss a class, it's easy to catch up. If you just want to get another look at something I talked about, it's all available. But the thing that we care about mostly today is course information. And all I have under course information is the syllabus. And so today we're going to talk about the syllabus. I'll just download this. Okay, so this is Physics 1 with Calculus. It's a 5-credit class. The 5-credit class, what that really means is we have 5 in-class hours. And if you Google, like, how much study time or whatever do I need to do outside of class for a college class, you'll get answers from a whole bunch of different colleges and universities, and the answers will all be pretty much the same. It'll say the number of hours that you have in class each week, that's 5 in this case, multiply that by 2, and that gives you the lower bounds for how much time you're expected to put in outside of class. Multiply it by 3, and that gives you the upper bounds for how much time you're supposed to put in outside of class. So for us, that means somewhere in the ballpark of 10 to 15 hours a week outside of class that you need to put in to this class to make like a good faith effort at understanding this material. Okay. So the first thing I want to say before I get into the syllabus and stuff is I know that a lot of people are, have a lot of things going on, work obligations, other classes. There are definitely some people in here who have families they have to take care of and stuff. I know that people have a lot going on. But the first thing you need to do is look at your schedule and ask yourself, do I truthfully have, the 5 hours of class plus 10 to 15 more hours outside of class to put into to understand this material? Okay. And if you don't have that time, it's not a value judgment or whatever, but you just can't, it's not the right time to take this class. Okay. Maybe you think, like I always am pretty efficient with understanding things. Maybe you are, but if you don't have 10 to 15 hours outside of class time to devote to this class, you're really just gambling. Maybe you'll understand it, maybe you won't, but you don't have the time to give this class an honest effort. Okay. So that's the first thing I want to say. And it's just, I don't know what to say. Every semester I talk to people towards the end of the semester who are just, they're upset because they're doing badly in the class, and it's like, well, you could do this, and they're like, I don't have time for that, I have work and whatever. There's nothing we can do about that. If you don't have that time, there's just nothing else you can do. Okay, so take that seriously. To be honest, I would say probably in this class, take that, I said 10 to 15 hours outside of class. If you took that lower limit and just consistently put in 10 hours of time outside of class, I think you would do really well, almost for most people here. Okay. But if you're not putting in that time, you're just not treating it like a college class, and chances are you're gonna, the grades are gonna show that. Okay, my name is Guyo Lakin. Please just call me Guyo. My PhD is in sort of engineering math, so it's not exactly physics, but obviously there's a lot of overlap. My office is like right across the hall, 2302. I don't have office hours in my office. I have them in the tutoring center, just so that more people can be in there. So the only time you really need to go to my office probably is if we make arrangements outside of office hours to, you want to talk about grades, or you can't make it to office hours or whatever, send me an email. We can meet in my office. But otherwise, the tutoring center is the place where I'm going to do my office hours. The lectures, you made it to the first one, so you're on the right track. There's where the lectures are and when. There are 2 different lab sections, and everybody has one of those 2, so that the people in the class are divided up, so labs don't have to be so big. They're both on Fridays, but for the most part, I think it would be fine no matter which lab you're signed up for. If you want to just, if the other one works better for you, I think that'd be fine. If there's a problem with way too many people in one lab or the other, then we'll have to deal with it. But in the past, it's always been fine. So just you can go to whichever one you want, and week to week, if one week you can't make it to yours, you have a doctor's appointment, or say you have something going on, but you can make it to the other one. You don't really have to tell me ahead of time. You can just show up to the one that works. The labs are all the same. My office hours, like I said, are in the tutoring center, and it's you probably just need, it's going to be hard to remember those hours. You're probably just going to have to look each time, but it's basically Monday from 2 to 3, Tuesdays and Thursdays from 1 to 2, Wednesdays from 2 to 4. And I have seen really good results in the past. So this is my 12th year. And when people have made an effort to come consistently to 1 or more office hours a week, and just come to office hours and just sit at the tables and work on problems. Hopefully there'll be some other students from class there, and you can work on problems with them. And then if you get stuck, I'm there because it's office hours. The people who've treated that as just sort of a regular part of their week have done really well in the class. And so I think it's a good idea, if you can make it work, to just think of, find an hour or 2 that you can make it to office hours regularly, and just plan on that being part of your homework time. You know what I mean? Think of it as like study hall. It seems to work well. All that stuff, I kept going on and on about the number of hours in the class. Okay, so I sort of feel like that's making me seem like I'm going to be like this hard ass guy. I'm totally not like that. I think, if anything, this class is probably going to be in the easier half of calculus-based physics classes that are out there. But all I'm saying is, you got to be ready for the amount of work that a college class requires. And I know that you can find college classes that require a lot less than that, but just be ready for the kind of class this is going to be. Regularly, so now I'm getting back into it again, but this class has it's not my class, it's over our whole school, has a rate of people withdrawing and getting D's and F's of somewhere in the range of 30 to 40%. Okay, that's just so high, and that's not fun for students, and it's not fun for the people teaching. And I think by far the biggest reason for that is people just starting a college class when they don't have the time or the inclination to participate in a real college class, you know. So don't be that, and then we'll have 100% success rate, and everyone will be happy. Okay, materials that you need for this class. The biggest thing here is that there's no required textbook. Everything that you need is going to be given in lectures. All you need to do is understand what I'm trying to get across to you in lectures. I'm trying to make it as simple and clear as I can and strip it down to as small amount of information as I can. I've tried really hard to, you know, to set up the class that way. And all you have to do is spend your 10 hours a week outside of class thinking, like, what's the reason that we're going through this? How does this relate to the stuff we learned before? How can I use the information that was given in class to make an airtight, logical argument that this has to be the answer? Okay, all your job is to understand what I am trying to say as clearly as I can. The benefit is instead of having 200 pages of textbook to skim through and pull information out of during the semester, all you have is the amount of stuff that I can say in 50 minutes 4 times a week, which is not that much information, you know. The trade-off is because the total amount of information you're responsible for is a lot less, I think it's reasonable for me to expect you to understand that stuff, remember that stuff a lot better than you would if I was giving you a huge amount of information to skim. And so my assignments will always include a day's notes to read through, you know, or a few days' notes to read through, and some homework problems to do. And you're going to want to spend time reading through the notes, not just taking the notes, being in class, but going back through them, trying to remember, like, what, you know, how was this example problem done? How was this? So that's sort of the trade-off for not having a textbook. It is a good idea, I think, to have a textbook for future reference. You're not going to use it at all in this class, but when you take Physics 2, you know, you're going to have a textbook required. Most likely it's going to be that textbook by night. So if you get an old edition of it, maybe you can save a lot of money. Usually you can. And then Sham's Outlines. I always recommend Sham's Outlines for every science and engineering class that you take from now on. I would recommend that you get one. They cost like $15 or $20. They're paperback things with nice, concise descriptions of the topics, and then just a lot of problems with solutions and answers to everything. They're really nice. And you need a scientific calculator with trigonometric functions. Really, you should get a graphing calculator. I mean, you're going to need one eventually in your engineering classes. The Texas Instruments calculators are all great. And if you're in the market for a new Texas Instruments calculator or graphing calculator, I would recommend, all things being equal, that you get one that does eigenvalues and eigenvectors. That's something that's going to be useful pretty soon. It won't matter for this class, and you can get by without it, but it's a nice thing to have. And then the second thing that you need is a 3-ring binder. That's where you're going to put all your homework and all your notes and stuff. Yes? No, it needs to be a binder because it's going to need to be formatted a certain way. and it's going to have to hold all your class notes in it, and all your homework and stuff. So the ones that are, I didn't look up but these, that's probably an inch, I guess, are probably too small. You probably want to get like a 2-inch or a 3-inch one. And yeah, like I said, just everything for this class is going to go in this binder. This binder is going to be your resource for future reference. So it's going to need to be, organized, legible, all that kind of stuff. The prerequisites are Calc 1 and a co-requisite of Calc 2. Come talk to me if you have any questions about that. Every bit of, all the materials that you need from me, I'm going to post on the D2L site. So you definitely need to get access to that as soon as possible. And the topics to be covered, well, I don't think it helps much to go into that right now. But I'll give you some sort of outlines and stuff of what we're doing as we get into the class. The grading scale is, unless it has to be curved, it usually does not really have to be curved. But so usually the grading scale is 92 and up is an A, 82 and up is a B, 70, 60. That might seem like a surprisingly high, the 92 and 82 especially seem like high cutoff lines for A and B grades. But really, those cutoffs have been chosen based on past results of, like how many people I've had at different percentages over the years. Those seem to reflect performances pretty well. The grades that people get on tests and homework and stuff in this class tend to be probably a little higher than the grades people get on tests and homework in other similar classes. And it's just because of the relationships between the problems I assign and the kind of problems I put on tests. I think I try to keep them pretty much in the same ballpark. You won't ever look at a problem and think wow, this is way out of left field. If you're comfortable with the homework problems, you understand them well, you'll see the exam questions and think okay, I know the thought process to do this. You know what I mean? So that's why the grade cutoffs tend to be a little higher than other classes. The grades will be determined 60% exams, 15% quizzes, and I'll talk about the difference between those. 15% binder checks, which is the way that I make sure that you're putting in the right amount of work on your homework, and 10% lab exams. And so now I'm just going to go through these different categories. Anybody have any questions yet about any of the stuff I've talked about before I start getting into the specifics of how the grades break down? Okay. Okay, so the biggest part of your grade is exams. 60% of your total grade is exams. There are 5 total exams, and including the final, they're all worth the same amount. So they all come out to be 12% of your grade. It says in there that there won't be any makeup exams. If you have a good reason that you can't make it to an exam and you tell me ahead of time, then I'm sure we can figure out something for you to have a makeup exam. That sounds sort of more strict than it is. But I don't want to get into a thing where people are taking multiple exams outside of the lab period, outside of the exam period, I mean. You should plan on these being the times that you take those exams, and anything outside of that is sort of like a special case. So the the dates for all the exams are given. The exams are in class. The final is the Monday of finals week at 11 a.m. In this classroom. And when you take the final, let's say, so there's sort of two possibilities for when you take the final and the final's graded. One is that you didn't do very well on the final. Let's say that your final score is lower than your first 4 exams. Your first 4 exams were all higher scores. Then the final still counts as 12% of your grade, okay? But that's it. Now let's say that you take the final and you do really well on it, or anyways, you do better on the final than at least one of your first 4 exams. In that case, your final counts as sort of like a mulligan. Like let's say you did badly on exam 2, okay? You do better on exam 5 on the final. Your score in the final replaces the bad score on exam 2. So your exam 2 score goes away and it counts as itself. So if the final doesn't go well, it's worth 12% of your grade. If it does go well, it's worth 24% of your grade. Okay. And it means you get to drop one of your first 4. Okay. So like say you come to the first test and you look at it and you have a panic attack and you start farting like crazy and you like faint and fall down and hit your head on the table and lie there lifelessly on the floor for the whole time and then hand in an exam that's covered in blood or whatever and nothing's written on it. Okay. That exam did not go very well, right? Yeah. But when you take the final, your score for the final will replace that score. You know, it's like a mulligan. Any questions about the tests? Oh, the tests are, so the format of the tests is basically the same format as the problems I'm going to assign. Okay, so the way to get ready for the tests is to understand the problems that I assign well. The tests are all cumulative, so you need to keep going back and refreshing your memory on old material in addition to the new stuff that we're doing. But the way that I'm going to assign problems, I'm going to try to keep you going back to old stuff in a way that should help you be ready for the new and the old, you know. The next part of your grade that's listed, well, not the next one that's listed, but another part is the binders. The binders are where you're going to keep your lecture notes. You're going to put all your homework. You're going to punch holes in your exams when you get them back graded and put them in there. So you just have everything in there. So later on, a year later or whatever, if you're like, oh, I can't remember how to do this kind of problem, the goal of the binders is to make it easy to find the problems you did on that kind of stuff, the notes on that kind of stuff. It needs to be legible and usable, you know. It's like your textbook. Yep.
So how far in advance are homework problems posted?
Well, since they are never, so I'll post an assignment for every class probably in the evening of that class, you know, and since you don't hand in homework, all you do is put it in the binder. You don't really have to worry so much about like how much time you have, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it says below, like way below here, here's when you'll turn these binders in, and that's the only way that I evaluate your homework. So if you get a day behind or 2 days behind or whatever, it's fine, you know, like you just have to catch up. Although I would definitely recommend as much as you can, try to stay on, you know, don't get behind as much as you can. Okay. So you need dividers in your binder to separate it into, well, it says 3 sections, but there's really 4 sections here. I should change that in the syllabus. There's a section for your class notes, and then there's a section that holds the problem questions, printout of the assigned problems. And that section also then has your worked homework problems. And then a third section that's repeated homework problems. I'll tell you about that in a second. And then a last section that's for exams. And the way I'm going to assign problems is when we cover a new topic, I'll assign, say we start doing one-dimensional kinematics. Those are just words right now, but we go into this section and I assign some problems. And that day I'll also assign some problems that you've already done. Okay, like you probably haven't had this before as a way of doing assignments, but it's actually really useful to go back over problems that you've already done. And the idea is the second time that you see it, you're trying to see how well you can do that problem without going back through your notes and going through example problems and stuff. How well did you understand it the first time? How well do you remember that information? Okay. And the new stuff and the second time you go through it, it all has to be done and put in the binder. Okay. And I'm going to evaluate your binders based on the completeness of all that kind of stuff. Okay. I'm just trying to keep you, trying to make sure that you keep diligently working on new material and that you keep diligently going back when I assign it and working through those problems again. And I think you'll find that that it really helps you solidify the information, and it really helps you remember the information and remember what you did. Okay. You don't like it right now, but by the end you'll like it. Okay. Well, that's what I hope. Yes. Yes, but you should make a hard copy of everything and put it in a binder. So I mean, all you have to do is print it out. But yeah, that works perfectly fine. As far as those repeated problems go, like say all you want to do with as little effort as possible is get as many points as possible for your binder. Obviously, you could just copy straight up copy the work that you did your first time through these problems, but that takes time and it doesn't help you understand the material. So it's not a very good way to go about things. I would really recommend that when you go through these problems the second time, that you try as much as you can to think about it as like, what if this was a question on a test? What do I remember about this? How well can I do it without reminding myself about the old stuff? We're trying to get to the point where you know these problems really well by the end of the semester. Okay, and then you put your exams in there too. I'm breaking up this class, half of this class is section 21 and half is section 22. These are the dates, depending on what your lab section is, that you'll bring your binders in for me to evaluate. And each one of these checks is going to be worth 7.5% of your grade, so they add up to a total of 15%. Okay. Anybody have any questions about the binders? Yes. Okay. You can choose which one, but the way I just want to, why don't you turn in your binder based on what it says on your, on your schedule? It's just a way for me to break it up so I grade half of them one week and half of them the next week, Any other questions? Okay, and then quizzes are different from exams. So at the end of class, the last 10 minutes or so of class, every other week, on Thursday, every other week, there'll be a short, you know, 6 or 7 questions, short answer questions, just asking you about stuff that I said in class that I consider to be important, like some of the most important information in the class. So it's just a way, so this isn't ever going to have problems on it. It's just a way for me to make sure that you're going back and reading the notes the way you should. Okay. And I can give you examples later of the kind of questions that I put on a quiz. But to get ready for the exams, you want to go through problems. To get ready for the quizzes, you want to read and skim through your lecture notes. Okay. And here are the dates of all the quizzes. Oh, here's a typo. It says every other Thursday, but there's only one Thursday. All the rest are Mondays. But these are the actual dates. Don't pay attention to the Thursday here. Oh, and the lowest quiz score gets dropped. So if you miss one or whatever, that gets thrown out. So it'll be graded on 6 of these quizzes. So since they add up to 15% of your grade, what's that for a percentage? 2.5%? 2, something like that. Each quiz is worth 2 point something percent of your grade. Okay, and then the lab exams. So every Friday you're going to have lab. And you do have to come to labs. I just do labs as a yes or no thing. You can miss 2 labs and still pass the class, but if you miss a third one, you can't pass the class. So just the idea is come to every lab. Don't think about like which ones can I miss or whatever. Come to the labs. And then how well you understand the material in labs is going to be evaluated on these lab exams that are on these 3 dates. And in labs, we're mostly going to be focusing on physics intuition, improving your physics intuition. So like the kind of problems that we do in class will be mainly, they'll be sort of mathematical calculations, but at the same time, we want to make sure that your intuition about how objects move, what happens when objects collide, what do you know about, we want to make sure that your intuition is coming along with your calculations. So that's what we're going to be focusing on in lab. And you can think of labs and class as somewhat standalone, although hopefully they sort of reinforce each other. The lab exams add up to 10% of your grade. So each of these lab exams is worth 3 1/3%. So none of those are, if you're, the night before a lab exam, you feel like you wish you understood it better. It's not something to like freak out over. 10% is a big chunk that they all add up to, but one by itself, say you get a 50%, which is not a very good score on the lab exam, that still only loses you, less than 2% of the grade. So this isn't a very high stakes undertaking, but it is important as far as understanding. Any questions about the labs or the lab exams? Yes. It didn't say that in there, but I do think that's a good idea. Yeah. And I'll print out the labs for you, and I'll give you hard copies so you can take those with you. Any other questions? Or any other questions about any of this stuff that I've talked about? Okay. And then the last thing I want to talk about really is contribution to the learning atmosphere. So this is a lecture class, although there will be times that that I'll put up problems for you to work on with the people next to you, and we'll sort of go back and forth somewhat. And they'll, I'll ask questions a lot of times for you to answer. But while I'm lecturing, I expect you not to talk at all about, not to be having conversations. I know there are times when you're like, you miss something and you ask the person next to you a question or whatever, just whisper it or whatever, that's fine. I know that's great. That'll help you make sense out of things. But you shouldn't be having outside conversations with anybody while I'm lecturing, okay? If there's anybody, and this isn't usually a problem, but if there's anybody that is causing repeated distractions, I, reserve the right to take points off for that, but it shouldn't be a problem. Just when you're here, be thinking about physics. If you're not ready to think about physics when it's time for physics class, just don't come to class. Attendance isn't required. There'll be lecture videos available, notes available. You can easily go and do it later if you're too tired or you have other things in your mind or you have a test coming up in an hour. But if you come here, just be ready to concentrate on doing this stuff while you're here. Okay. And then don't cheat. Any questions about that or any of the stuff that I've talked about before this? Okay, so if you put in roughly the right amount of work and you try to understand what I'm saying and you come get help when you can't do a problem or whatever, I think you're going to find this to be not a very stressful experience. I think you're going to find it to be a good experience. I think you'll go into physics 2 feeling like you understand this material really well, and that's a good feeling, So do those things and it's going to be a good semester. Okay? So let me think about assignments. Okay, I'm going to think about that. I will put an assignment up on D2L. I might do a little bit of a calculus review of some problems for you to work on before tomorrow. Mainly, I'd say just get a hold of a binder. Get that in place so that when we start material tomorrow, you have a place to put your notes and stuff. Okay, see you tomorrow.